Australia's pet industry is rapidly growing, creating strong opportunities for property investors with high spending on pet service, vet clinics, and pet supply stores. This sector offers stable, recession-proof returns. Hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to the burgeoning channel. I'm glad to have our national partners, Shaun and Darren, here today, sharing the market key drivers, yield trends, and why the pet-related assets making the compelling long-term investment. Hi, Darren and Shaun. Just say hi to our audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Darren Beehag. I've been with Burgeoning for just over 30 years. I'm a partner and have been involved predominantly with investment sales.
My name's Shaun Venables. I've worked with Darren for just about 20 years next year. Also in investment sales all around Australia.
Today I'm going to ask you guys a few questions and then you just share your future visions and your market insight with our audience. So the first question is for Shaun. Could you please talk about the size of the market and what kind of growth we're seeing?
Yeah, sure. Australia historically, we've always loved our pets. So we love our cats and our dogs and our aquariums, and yeah, it's been a huge industry that's benefited also from population growth. The annual spend in the pet industry at the moment is $33 billion, which is a significant amount of money, and that has been growing at 4.8% over the last 5 years.
Good to know that. That's huge. The second question is for Darren. Could you please start by explaining why the pet industry is so attractive to all the commercial investors, in particular all the Asian investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pet services industry now is right up there along other mainstream investment classes like fast food, service stations, medical, childcare. It really has got a strong following, and it's not so long ago there weren't many sales in this sector, but today there is, and they're selling on a real cross-spread of yields, anything between about 5 and 7%, depending on where the property is located, how long the lease is. So there's a real variety of investment options out there.
Yeah, I know 5 to 7% yield, some of the Asian investors are looking to buy within that yield because they can cover the mortgage a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think the other thing that gives people confidence, and this is another stat, Shaun, there's 26 million people in this country and there's 29 million pets, and the average spend on each pet is about $1,200, so it's an enormous industry.
Yeah,
I think that's understated
that's
as well.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, I know I have some friends, they would like to spend a lot of money on their pets, treat them as their kids.
That's right.
They have their own choker, very expensive choker, and then the very fancy clothes.
Birth rates are down and pet ownership's up.
True. And next questions, Shaun, are there specific factors contributing to this yield compression?
Definitely. I think the rise of the pet retail outlets has been one of those. Woolworths acquiring 55% of the pet stock brand was a real endorsement for where those pet retailers are going. And you've got big operators like Pet Barn, also over 160 stores, and that's US equity that owns the majority of them. And then you've got the largest independent in Pets Domain, growing rapidly. I think they're well over 80 stores now and really targeting a lot of those strong regional centres.
Good to know that. Darren, how does this growth translate into investment opportunities?
First of all, there's a real spread in the pricing, so it doesn't matter in the case of the portfolio that we've got coming up whether you've got less than $1 million or whether you've got more than $10 million. There's a spread of investments right across that whole price quantum. Also, we've got geographic spread, these investments coming up, and that's the case with the pet services industry. Of course, they have stores right across Australia. In the case of Pet Stop, they've got something like 500 plus stores across.
Including their vets.
Yep, including their vets, their retail stores, their grooming facilities, and that's right across Australia and also New Zealand. And they've got something like 2,000 plus staff. So they're a big company spread right across Australia and New Zealand. All of these properties are in really good positions, whether they be in regional towns or whether they be in metropolitan positions like the one in Melbourne that we've got coming up in Paran. So not only have you got geographic spread, you've got price point spread as well. So there really is something for everybody. And as Shaun says, with Pet Stock being 55% owned by Woolworths, very difficult to get an investment for less than $2 million, and in some cases even less than $1 million, with your tenant being majority owned by somebody as big as Woolworths, one of Australia's biggest retailers.
Yeah, big names means stable and confident. Yeah. Questions for Shaun. Could you please talk about the main players in this industry? I know you mentioned pet barn, pet stocks, and then just talk a little bit more about them.
Yeah, it's probably, obviously you've got your pet retail industry, so the pet stocks at the moment, but we need to also remember we've got vet clinics as well, which are, have become quite a good alternative to even medical investments. So the bigger players there at the moment are vet partners. They're the largest in terms of vet ownership. Green Cross are a big player there as well. You've got APM, an Australian listed company who've got multiple vet clinics as well. So a lot of these older established veterinary clinics are ultimately acquired by larger companies who consolidate and grow that industry. Some of these tenants, while you might have an APM lease or you might have a vet partner's lease, that clinic's been there in operation quite often for 50 plus years. So they're once they're entrenched, once they've got their catchment covered, then people, habits don't change. You keep going back to the same place.
Are there any special requirements for the buildings if you want to be vet clinics, like the fit out, anything? Are there any special requirements for that?
There are special requirements. I mean, at the end of the day, you're performing surgeries in these properties. They're a medical grade property a lot of the time. So, we talk about properties that have been occupied for 50 years. Well, they've been upgraded many times over time. Be that in flooring, obviously, when you're doing surgeries, you need special plumbing. There's a number of things that are required in these properties in order to maintain those permits. You'll even get vet clinics that have pharmacies attached. They need to lock up obviously medicine as well. So yeah, the requirements are there, and it's very difficult to pack that operation up and shift it somewhere else and build that property again for the same money. So replacement is a big factor.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why the tenants stay there for a long time.
It's difficult to go.
It's difficult for them to move. Okay, next question for Darren. That's your portfolio question. You've listed a lot of pet stocks, 5 pet stocks in this portfolio. Could you please tell us a little bit more about your pet stock portfolio?
Yeah, I can. It's a really diverse portfolio. We're covering 3 states, so we're covering New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria. There's 1 metropolitan property and 4 regional properties. The metropolitan property is in Melbourne, in High Street, Paran, fantastic real estate. And then we've got 4 really strong regional properties in Kahuna in Northern Victoria, Barham in southern New South Wales on the Murray River, Leeton in the Riverina, and then Gordonvale in Cairns, Queensland. The rents on these vary from about $40,000 upwards, so we're talking about sub $1 million buyers up to circa $10 million buyers for Paran. And as I say, they're all in really good positions, leases up to 15 years. Rent reviews of 3% a year. In the case of Paran, we've got an early termination clause for those who either want to own or occupy the property or develop the property subject to council and relevant approvals. In the case of Paran, you can give 12 months notice to be able to get access to the property, but equally if you're an investor, there's a 10-year lease there, and I'm sure Petstock will want to stay there beyond 10 years, I would have thought, if you were to leave them there, because it really is an irreplaceable location. But you've got certainty for that initial term, and then there would be a negotiation after that with the tenant in the case of Paran.
That's good to know. I noticed that you just said Paran that we have development opportunities for that one. Could you please explain more about that?
Yeah, sure. The great thing about Paran, Catherine, is that it's a 10-year lease underpinned by Petstock, as we said, who is majority owned by Woolworths. But the great thing about Paran, even though it's a great investment opportunity in its own right, it also has potential for development, further development, or perhaps even owner occupation. And there is a landlord favourable clause in the lease that says that you are able to give Petstock 12 months notice if you desire it. So really it'll have appeal to investors because it stacks up in every way as an investment, but also for developers and owner occupiers, you can get access to the site if you want to prior to the 10-year term expiry.
Oh, that's a really good thing to know. Questions for Shaun. What kind of price point are we seeing in this sector?
Oh, there's a fairly big range on the price points. There are veterinary clinics we were doing in metropolitan Melbourne, even metropolitan Brisbane earlier in the year that were coming in at just under 2 million. These are properties that have been there for many years, and that's quite affordable, I guess, at that price point. The pet retailers would range also, I think, as Darren said, sub 1 million, up to, say, a property that we sold in the Petstock in Torquay, just last campaign, which was I think just over 5 million. Keeping in mind that pet stock also housed an APM veterinary practice inside the store. So quite often you will get those pet stocks pairing up with APM. Obviously the two go hand in hand.
I know you've done a lot of pet-related transactions or vet clinics. Do you have any stories or any case studies you want to talk to?
I'll probably just, I found it fascinating to go into some of these established clinics around metropolitan Melbourne earlier in the year, to go to reception and talk to the lady, just asking how long the clinic had been there. They'd been there for at least 50 years that they knew of. The lady on reception had been there for 49 of those years, so I thought that was quite interesting too. Her name was Linda, and she'd seen generations of pets coming through that particular clinic for a number of years. So, look, once they're in place, these things very, very rarely move.
The last questions for both of you. Looking ahead, how do you see the future of pet-related investment in Australia?
Well, I think it's only going to continue to gain momentum, Catherine. It's already a mainstream investment class, as I said, right up alongside some of the other asset classes like pure medical, service stations, fast food. All of those sectors now have a following, but so too does the pet industry now, and that's because they're long-term leases, they're generally in very strong positions. You've almost always got increases in rent on a yearly basis, and they're generally net leases, so they tick a lot of boxes that investors are looking for. So I think it's only going to get stronger. It's a relatively new industry compared to some of the other industries out there and some of the other asset classes, but as I say, there's a lot of confidence in it, and it's considered to be relatively low risk as well, and recession proof to an extent.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the pet stores have always been there. They're not quite what they are today. But the vet clinics, they've been there for forever, really. And I think it's these larger organisations, bigger companies, private equity, listed entities, acquiring these existing practices and consolidating them. Now all of a sudden you've got these properties with these very strong tenants, with multiple clinics or multiple retail locations being offered to the market. Just like medical, just like with people, if your animals are unwell, the internet's not going to fix them. They're going to need to go and see someone physically and to be treated.
I think also it's a good point you make, with the likes of Woolworths and other big companies investing huge quantities of money into the industry. To some extent, as an investor, they've already done your DD, your due diligence going into the investment. So they put a lot of work into these sites. They do a lot of homework before they commit to these sites. And if you're buying one with a 10 or 15-year lease, gee, a lot of the hard work's been done.
It's been endorsed for you.
Yeah, especially location. They like great locations.
It has.
Yeah. I know some investors, they focus more on cash flow, but the others, they focus more on capital gain. So what do you think pet-related investment can meet the requirements?
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Comes back to income growth ultimately, like any property. If you've got a growing income, that's going to help with your capital growth.
They're in such key positions, quite often on large tracts of land. The one in Kahuna in northern Victoria that we're offering is on a block of land that's 10,000 square metres plus. Not only are they often large key tracts of land, but they're in really good positions. So I think capital growth, certainly with the offerings that we've got coming up in the next portfolio, should be very strong, and it's on the back of 3% rent increases as well in regard to the 4 regional pet stocks that we're offering. And in the case of Paran, the rent reviews are up to 12% a year after year 4 of the lease. So some quite steep rent increases after the first 4 years of the lease, going right up to 12%. So you're going to get good capital growth off the back of that over time as well. And in the case of Paran, it's a 10-year lease, and with the regional properties, they're 15-year leases. So
often those properties, they're established stores, they're historical rents that are actually quite low to begin with. So there's plenty of room for those rents to grow without getting above market levels. And it just it also, it's a safety net too, that nobody can build you a brand new store for that rent.
Yeah, good to know that. Anything that you want to share with us? Anything else?
I would just talk around, I guess people are thinking about pet ownership and obviously dogs being number one, cats being number two, but it's actually aquariums and the third most owned pet in Australia. And obviously with keeping fish comes a lot of equipment. So there's another sort of string to the bow on these pet retailers where they can make money, and keeping in mind too in your regional areas, you've got a lot of hobby farms. You can't go to Woolworths and buy the food for your sheep or your your rabbits. So they do ultimately hold a pretty important position in these communities.
Yeah. I remember like we had a conversation this morning, you know, like Woolies is kind of like dominating like the human beings groceries, and then like now.
That's right.
Yeah. Like pet dog and pet barn, they're dominating the pest industry. That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing all this info with us today.
Catherine, thanks you very much for having us. There's plenty of good things to talk around pet retail and veterinary.
Thanks for having us along. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Even for me, I learned a lot from this. We're gonna have auctions on 10th of December, 11th of December, and 12th of December. So if you have any questions about any properties, please let us know. Thank you.